right. Thanking God once again, for the chance to just get done this week. Let's call Ezekiel chapter 11. And one more thing. As God, before he leaves on the cherubim on which he has mounted up, is going to seem to give Ezekiel one more word that amounts to what we call in our culture, one more thing, as he's walking out the door in this chapter, where in the first 4 verses, he's going to seem to call out by name two of those who have been leading the people of Judah, or specifically the people of Jerusalem, astray, where he's going to say, and I saw among them Jazaniah, the son of Azur, and Pelatiah, the son of Benaiah, princes of the people. And he said to me, Son of man, these are the men who devise iniquity and who give wicked counsel in this city. Verse 4, he's going to give Ezekiel the command, therefore prophesy against them. Prophesy, O son of man. And in the next few verses, verses 5 through 12, he is going to do just that. And this part confuses me, and I hate to keep saying that, but once again, we're going to have to settle for my limited understanding of what's going on in this chapter, which is really divided into two halves. One, the prophecy or the parting words against the people of Jerusalem, and then a word of encouragement for those who have already been deported off into Babylonian captivity. But in the meantime, verses 5 through 12 are going to show Ezekiel's prophecy, which seems to indicate that even when they try to turn their false prophecies into something that's more consistent with what God has been saying all along, and that is it's hopeless, God's going to say it's not going to be enough, because he is going to move the line again, it seems, even when they're trying to do what's right, with a heart that's probably still set on defiance. And so even though they are going to liken the city to a cauldron and liken themselves to the meat within a cauldron, God's going to say, you got that wrong too. As he's going to say, no, the people you have murdered in this city are going to be the meat in the cauldron, and I'm going to drag you outside of the city. And as verse 9 says, execute judgment upon you there. Don't necessarily, as I say, clearly understand that, but I do know that outside the city is a real bad sign for a number of reasons. Why? Pointing forward to the New Testament, Christ was killed outside of the city, a tradition in the 1st century that indicated a place where they were going to kill criminals. And then likewise, earlier in the prophets, maybe in Jeremiah, the valley of the sons of Hinnom was a place where he promised to kill at least some of them, those who had gone over into the detestable practices of child sacrifice, taking advantage of the innocent in order to promote their own prosperity. And so as he seems to be telling them that they are not going to get the privilege of dying in the city, he's going to make an exception for one who he's going to kill right away. As verse 13 says, and it came to pass while I was prophesying that Pelatiah, the son of Benaiah, died. And I don't know why, but Ezekiel cares. It might just be a representation of how I need to grow, but he's going to say, then I fell down on my face and cried out with a loud voice and said, Lord, will you make a full end of the remnant of Israel? At which point, God is going to help Ezekiel understand in much the same way he helped Jeremiah understand that the people you are mourning for do not have your best interest in mind. Helping Ezekiel see that in verses 14 on through the end of the chapter, as he begins in verse 14 saying, and the word of the Lord came to me, Son of man, your brothers, even your brothers, your kinsmen, the whole house of Israel, all of them are those whom the inhabitants of Jerusalem have said, go far from the Lord. To us this land is given for a possession. Once again, don't want to read too much into it, but on Wednesday night we looked at it from the perspective of basically God helping them see that the folks who are left behind in Jerusalem are starting to see this as an inheritance for them at the expense of those who were carted off, as though they were somehow worse sinners than those left behind, forgetting or quite possibly disregarding Jeremiah's prophecies about the good and bad figs, a prophecy where he actually said the good figs were the ones carted off into captivity first. Understanding that, God, through Ezekiel in the last half of chapter 11, is going to give that remnant encouragement that they are not going to see the greater shame, because the greatest shame is going to seem to be what is on deck, as God is now going to oversee the entire destruction of the city at the hand of the Babylonians, leaving only a small remnant of survivors to take care of what's left. God letting the remnant in captivity know that regardless of whatever the rumors might be, they are actually the remnant with whom he is going to work to provide Judah and Israel a future. And at that point, with the one more thing, at least as I've called it, being a word of warning to Jerusalem, but a word of encouragement to the exiles in Babylon, God mounts up on the cherubim and takes off, leaving Ezekiel to tell the exiles all that God had shown them, reminding me why we sometimes say my prayer for me is my prayer for you, or sometimes we reverse it and say my prayer for you is my prayer for me. May we lead the kind of lives that would encourage God to make his one last thing for us at any given moment a thing of encouragement as opposed to a thing of woe.